This hyacinth bean variety is easy to grow and produces abundant harvests. Let's look at growing hyacinth beans. So we are starting our hyacinth beans in these seed starting cells, and you can see the seeds, they look amazing. They are quite good quality seeds, and I will let you know how you can get these seeds from me. But let's first watch how we grow these hyacinth beans. We are using a coco coir based potting mix or seed starting mix to start these seeds, and we sow one seed per cell. And hyacinth beans grow pretty much around the year, so you can start hyacinth beans anytime, spring season, fall season. Now you can see that within a few days the hyacinth bean seeds will start showing up, and they have a pretty good germination rate, so you can expect your hyacinth beans to grow quite fast. And 1 week since sowing, you can see that the seedlings have emerged and they have quite healthy leaves. And we will be planting these hyacinth beans in containers as well as raised beds. Now choose a nice sunny location for your hyacinth beans and make sure that the hyacinth beans gets at least 6 hours of sunlight a day. And remember, these are bush type beans. The hyacinth beans that we saw in our previous episode were the vining type, and it's a little cumbersome, very difficult to maintain those beans. But this pole bean variety is not only a very high yielder, as you'll soon see, but is also very easy to grow and maintain. And we have planted 5 plants in this whiskey barrel container. That's enough space for growing these hyacinth beans. Now we will be planting these hyacinth beans in the raised beds as well. And once again, you need well-draining soil in the raised beds. We've used a mix of compost, peat moss, perlite, and we keep adding a lot of compost in our raised beds every few months, as and when the compost is ready, our homemade compost. And that really adds a lot of nutrients in the soil. And that's all really the hyacinth beans need, is good quality compost in the soil. You don't need to add any fertilizer, whether organic, inorganic. You don't really need to add anything to grow hyacinth beans. And the hyacinth beans is known by a lot of different names, as you can see on your screen. And this bean is commonly eaten in South Asian countries, a lot of Asian countries as well as African countries. It's not as popular in North America. Just make sure that you cook these beans well before consuming. And 47 days since sowing, you can see that the bean plants have grown quite well in the whiskey barrel container. They're upright, bush type plants, and they've started producing pods as well. Now the best thing about this hyacinth bean variety is that they produce these beautiful flowers, as you can see, and in clusters. And the beans are also produced in clusters. So the way this plant produces the beans makes it very easy to harvest these beans, as you can see. Now the beans are not yet ready for harvest. They do grow slightly larger than what you see here. But overall, the flowers look very pretty, beautiful flowers. And the flowers will now turn into these pods. And you don't need to do any kind of pollination, hand pollination for these bean plants. The flowers do become beans very quickly in no time. And remember that we haven't added any fertilizer or amendments for growing these beans. They don't really need any kind of fertilizer or nutrients. They can get all the nutrients they want just using compost, good quality compost or manure from the soil. Now 56 days since sowing the seeds, you can see that the beans can now be harvested. The pods have become a little larger in size, and this is the perfect time to harvest these beans. These cannot be eaten raw. Once again, it's very important that you do not eat these beans raw. They need to be cooked before eating. And once you harvest the beans, they will have some small seeds inside them, but not huge. And this is a good feature of this bean variety. It's meant to be used by chopping it up and then stir frying it and consuming it. And as you can see here, beautiful looking beans. And this is unlike the other bean variety like fava beans, where you only eat the seeds. The hyacinth beans can be consumed whole, including the pods. And the pods of the hyacinth beans are quite soft. The skin is quite soft. Now the hyacinth beans will keep producing beans over and over again. It sends out these stalks that you can see around the sides, and these will keep flowering and keep producing the hyacinth beans. Now the hyacinth beans that we planted in our raised bed is equally productive. As you can see, beautiful looking plants, and there are no signs of any insects or diseases on the hyacinth bean plant. It's a very prolific plant. It grows quite well and produces a lot of beans. And since the hyacinth bean plant can grow pretty much throughout the year, we planted this in spring and we were able to harvest this all through summer, late into summer, and even the fall season. Now this plant can even survive mild winters, like winters in Southern California. It can easily survive them and still produce a lot of beans. And here you can see the beans, beautiful looking beans, extremely high quality beans. And now let's come to the part of getting the seeds for this bean plant. Now I was given these seeds by a friend, and I've been growing these and I've been saving the seeds for quite some time now. So the only way I can give you these seeds is by having a giveaway, a seed giveaway. So keep an eye on the giveaway, which is coming soon. I will probably have it within the next few episodes. So that way I will be giving out these seed packets for these wonderful bush type hyacinth beans so that you can grow them in your home garden. And once again, you can see the harvest. It looks beautiful, quite good looking beans. Now it turned out that a few of the seeds that I had were a little vining, not really as vining as the variety that I grew earlier, but a little bit. So I just put tomato cages around it so that those could be supported. But these were also very high yielding hyacinth beans, and it looked very similar to the other hyacinth bean, the bush hyacinth beans. They're all from the same set of seeds, by the way. But it had a little shinier surface, as you can see, slightly smaller, more defined body. So it could have happened that out of all the seeds that I was planting, one or two were the vining type or a slightly different type. But for the most part, all these hyacinth beans grow like a bush, not like a vine. So overall, I was quite pleased with growing these beans, and it was very easy to maintain them and harvest them as well. And now let's come to saving the seeds for these beans. Since these seeds are very hard to find, I made sure that I saved a lot of these seeds every time the plant produced hyacinth beans. And you can see here, these are the seeds, beautiful looking seeds. They're dry, so they're ready to harvest and store. And all I really did was I let the beans be on the plant, and within a few days they just dry out and you can easily harvest the seeds from the pods. And this is something that you should be doing for most of your plants. These are heirloom seeds. Now, as you can see, this seed is not too good. It has some insect damage, but you can still find a few good seeds inside these seed pods. And as long as you're harvesting and storing enough seeds, you can throw away the ones that are not good. You should be able to save a lot of seeds from your hyacinth bean plant. And now let's look at a delicious hyacinth bean recipe. We need about 2 cups of hyacinth beans. As you can see here, that means these pods that you see. You will need turmeric powder, some salt, some oil. This is urad dal, which you can find in Indian grocery stores. Some mustard seeds, you can either use black or white. Some chili powder. And some grated coconut, which you can also find in Indian grocery stores. Now the first step that we're going to do is remove the edges or the sides of the hyacinth beans. And the reason we do that is because they are very fibrous. The edges are very fibrous and they're not very easy to eat. So while overall the hyacinth bean is very fibrous, the edges are extremely fibrous, and since we want to have a comfortable meal of hyacinth beans, we just remove the sides, just pull the edges out just like that. So it's at the top and the bottom. So make sure that you prepare your hyacinth beans for cutting in this way. Now once done, we have to chop up the hyacinth beans, and remember that we're using the pods as well as the seeds inside the hyacinth beans. So all we do is just hold them together and start chopping them just like you see on your screen. We chop them into small pieces, and you can chop about 4 or 5 or maybe more depending on your cutting skills. You can chop a lot of beans at the same time. And it's very similar to chopping French beans. We need to make sure that the pieces that are chopped are neither too small nor too big. And this is how the chopped hyacinth beans looks like. Alright, so we take a wok or any kind of frying pan. We always use cast iron skillets or pans or woks as you see here. We're going to be adding some oil. This is about 2 to 3 teaspoons of oil, and you can add more or less if you need, but we avoid adding too much oil. And then you add the urad dal. You then add the mustard seeds. You can either use black or white mustard. And then you let the oil heat for some time. The oil needs to heat up a little bit. And while the oil is heating up, you want to make sure that you stir the ingredients that you just added to the oil a little bit till they start sputtering and become slightly brown. You don't want to really overdo the step. Make sure that you watch while this is being cooked and make sure that you stir this in between. Now, a lot of folks also add chilies at this step. I'm going to avoid whole red chilies at this step because we're going to be using chili powder instead. And it's now time to add the hyacinth beans. As you can see, we chopped up our hyacinth beans and we're going to be adding them at this stage. And hyacinth beans are fibrous and they do take some time to cook. So we just mix them in very well here at this stage. And once they're thoroughly mixed in, we will be adding some turmeric powder, some chili powder. And if you don't want it spicy, you can avoid the chili powder. I usually like putting chili powder and some salt as needed, usually about a teaspoon or so. And then we just mix in everything together very well. And what happens is when you cook these hyacinth beans, they will absorb all the flavors of the turmeric, the chili, and everything else that you add. You can add some more spices if you want, but I just like to keep my dish simple, just to feel all the flavors of the hyacinth beans once it's cooked. Now we will be adding some water after mixing everything in. Hyacinth beans is fibrous and has water, but not a lot. So we do want to add some water so that this gets cooked very well. Now you don't have to add too much water, just add a little bit so that the hyacinth beans can cook well. And then we cover the pan or the wok and then we wait for about 3 minutes. And after 3 minutes, the hyacinth beans have started cooking and we just stir it again. We mix it in very well. And at this stage, if you see that the hyacinth beans has soaked up all the water during cooking, it's a good time to add some more water. And after adding water, we just cover it again and then cook for 3 more minutes. Now we can see that the hyacinth beans have started cooking very well. It's almost cooked. We are now going to be adding the grated coconut. Now remember that we didn't add the coconut in the beginning because we don't really want to overcook the coconut. You want a nice, fresh, grated flavor from the coconut. So we will now be mixing it in with the hyacinth beans. And once that's mixed in, all we need to do now is cover and cook for 2 minutes. And this should ensure that the hyacinth beans has absorbed all the flavors from the coconut as well. And once you open the lid, you can see that everything is now nicely cooked, not overcooked, but nicely cooked. The coconut is nicely mixed in with the hyacinth beans. And we are done. So this is how our hyacinth beans looks like. You can have it with tortillas or rice or quinoa. Let me know if you like hyacinth beans and you cook hyacinth beans. And if you have a favorite recipe, let me know in the comments box below. So there we have it, folks. That was our episode on growing hyacinth beans. This is a very interesting bean variety that you can try growing in your home garden. Just make sure that you don't eat them raw, that they need to be cooked before eating. And I've been eating hyacinth beans for many years. And they're an excellent, delicious bean variety that you can add to your diet. So do you grow hyacinth beans? Let me know in the comments box below. And I will soon have a seed giveaway where I will be sending out seeds for this plant. So keep an eye on that as well. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you have any comments or suggestions, please put them in the comments box below. We'll see you again soon. Happy gardening.